speak about my forthcoming book, Silapatikara, which has now been named as Kannaki's Anklet. But before we get into the novel, let me tell you something else. Time and again, if you ask anybody in our country, which are the two epics or which are the epics that we know, and people will inevitably tell you Ramayana and Mahabharata. Go a step further, and if you insist on another few names, it could be Iliad and Odyssey. But seldom do we hear any other name. Does it mean that there aren't any more epics? There are. Ramayana and Mahabharata have been well known because they were written in Sanskrit, and because they were written in Sanskrit, they were spread all over. Here is an epic which was written in Tamil. Tamil being the common language, it did not get attention beyond the zone, beyond the south of the country. And that is why we don't know about it. But Silapatikaram is definitely an epic worth reading, and for a number of reasons. Before we get into that, let me also tell you about the author. The author who wrote this epic is known as Ilango Adigal. Somewhere in 2nd century CE, this epic was written. What is important about this author, Ilango Adigal, is he was a Jain monk. A Jain monk writing about a novel which is not spiritual, which is neither didactic nor does it preach any ism. That's the best part about this. It's completely about ordinary human beings, their passions, their concerns, their affairs, their motivations. Besides this, another important aspect is it even focuses on some passionate relationship between a man and a woman, a man and his mistress. And it also takes care of what we call the political scenario of the times. This is kind of a rarity for a monk, and that's what makes it very, very intriguing and endearing to people. As I said, because it's not been written too often, or because it's not been debated and discussed the way our other epics have been, we don't seem to know much about it. The whole objective of writing this is to reach out to a wider audience. Yes, there have been other translations, but those translations have been extremely academic. It has not reached to the masses in a prose or in a novel format. My whole objective of writing Kannaki's Anklet is to give it a more easy read for people so that they get to know about it. An excellent epic worth reading. This takes me to another angle, that is it an epic at all? What is an epic? Let's understand that first. An epic is something about heroes. Generally the heroes are divine or semi-divine. There is a conflict of sorts and ends in a war. This is a very, very brief way of looking at it. Epic. The uniqueness about Silapatikaram is it has neither of them. There is no male hero. There is no divine character here. There is definitely no war. Looking at it, it's an untraditional, it's not a traditional epic. Nonetheless, we call it an epic. And one of the reasons which motivated me to write is this probably is the only epic which has a female hero. A female hero who's battling usual problems, household issues, is really not battling anything great. She's not having any battles of ideology, she's not having any physical battles, nor is she fighting demons, nor is she saving anything. Typical household issues, which is a concern of all of us, even today. And that's what makes her a heroine, in my opinion. And one of the reasons why I took this up is, time and again people have asked me, how come mythologies have no female heroes? To all who've asked me this question so many times, let me tell you, here is an epic which has a female hero right from the start till the end. We must read this from that perspective. An important aspect about Silapatikaram is that it shows the times that it was written in. Here is a time when there was no religious fanaticism, there was no sectarianism, and different religions kind of coexisted. When you read this epic, you will realize that the Brahmanism, Jainism and Buddhism have all been coexisting in the times at that point of time without any problems with each other. And that's the best part about it. And you will see shades of the Brahminical cult, also the Jainism and the Buddhism aspects to be considered here. Besides this, an important aspect is there is also an element of synthesis with folk culture and folk gods and goddesses, which has been very beautifully, or rather I should say seamlessly integrated into this. That makes this particular epic a very, very important epic in terms of the times we live in today. An important aspect about this also is how politics has been surrounding this particular story. Kannaki has been seen as somebody who epitomizes Tamil spirit, the Tamil woman, and the entire things built around it. Way back in 1968, CN Annadurai, the CM then, had installed this beautiful 10 feet idol of Kannaki as epitomizing the spirit of Tamil Nadu, not just the spirit of womanhood, but the spirit of the Tamilians as such. Somewhere in 2000, or I should say early 2000, for some reason the pedestal was smashed by a truck driver, and a lot of politics happened behind it. A certain party wanted it, and these are all in the public domain. You can read aspects, clippings from Frontline, Hindu, Indian Express, even Times of India have all quoted this, that for some reason it did not get installed in 2001 by Jayalalitha, and there are different rumors about it. But in 2006, the then CM, Dr. Karunanidhi, installed it back again, and today you can see it absolutely standing tall at the Marina Beach. A beautiful 10 feet long, 10 feet tall image. Must watch. The same space also gives to Ilangu Adigar. It's absolutely an imposing sculpture of Ilangu Adigar. The reason of bringing this up is that yes, many of us in the north, many of us in the south, in the east and the west don't know anything about it. But Kannaki is a living goddess in south. The entire route that Kannaki took from Puhar, which is in Tamil Nadu, considered to be a district in the modern day Nagapattinam, which of course has been washed out during one of the tsunamis, to Madurai to Kerala. This entire region can be tracked, and if somebody is following the entire map on that, you'll find a number of shrines, a number of temples dedicated to Kannaki. That's not the end of it. The cult of Kannaki then moved on into Sri Lanka, where she is better known as goddess Pattini. So it's not a small time goddess that we're talking about. We're talking of a mainstream goddess, where we have even seen that certain temples have even absorbed Kannaki as an avatar or as an incarnation of Parvati. That's the entire scenario about Kannaki. Another important aspect about Kannaki also is, if you look at history, it takes along with it three kingdoms. Seldom do we come across epics which are focusing on three kingdoms together, the Cholas, the Pandyas and the Chera. Each king seems to be getting its due attention here, and history is being built around it. And that's the whole beauty about Silam. Something that we find as a common factor in many of the epics or stories from the subcontinent, that aspect is fate or destiny. In Silapatikaram or in Kannaki's Anklet, what we see is that fate plays a very, very important role. The theory of karma has been very well ingrained and brought out by the author Ilangu Adigar, where one tries to explain that no matter what you do, your fate or your destiny follows you. You cannot escape it consciously or unconsciously or subconsciously, and that is importantly brought out here in this particular epic. The other aspect which I also mentioned earlier is that this epic has less aspects of miracles, divinity, fighting of dragons, or semi-human characters. We don't have any of these. What we have is the sheer humanness of this particular epic. We don't have an ideal character here. Nobody is ideal. Rather, even Kannaki's chastity or Kannaki's steadfastness to her husband can also be seen up to a fault. Kovalan is not an ideal husband. He gives in. The king is not ideal. Nobody is ideal. We have characters who are all having a shade of humanness here. In spite of that, the entire epic is so believable, so beautiful, and that's what probably makes us endearing. At this stage, when you read this particular epic, I personally feel each and every person can identify him or her with these kind of stories. If you're talking about any other epics, we find either them to be too ideal or we find them too much of shades of grey, not quite matching our personalities. Silapatikaram or Kannaki's Anklet will always remind you of characters who you know even today. To that extent, it's highly contemporary. And that's, I think, the most enduring aspect about Silapatikaram. From what I've written earlier and from what people have often asked me is that all the earlier books of mine or in mythology, we look at a feminist angle. Somehow Kannaki doesn't quite fit that bill of a feminist person. She's not feminist because she probably took her husband back in spite of her husband's waywardness. Her husband left her for a courtesan, but when the husband comes back, she gives in. Yes, doesn't quite fit the bill of a feminist woman. But let us understand from the perspective of the author here. When Ilango Adigar wrote this particular epic, his focus was not feminism. Also remember the fact that feminism is a very, very modern concept. He was focusing on something else. His focus was, what is the definition of an ideal woman? Then, as I said, we always make this mistake of judging our mythologies by the 21st century glasses that we wear today. As I said, these are modern concepts. So is she a feminist? Not from the popular version of what feminism is. To take back a wayward husband is definitely not feminism. Look at it from a very human angle. Which couple doesn't have a problem? Which husband and wife do not have differences over a number of things? If everybody sticks on to it, okay, are we going to go anywhere, or are we creating a new environment where just about the smallest aspect can break up a family? If we look at Kannaki, even if we look at Kovalan for that matter, who decides to come back home when he realizes his mistake? And Kannaki decides to pardon when the person is truly regretting his errors. I would see this as a kind of a compromise that a lot of couples do seek within their own relationship. More important from the perspective of the author, this is not to say that one is overlooking it, an aspect of a compromise. Let's look at the larger picture that the author was trying to paint. The author is trying to explain that a personal transgression is acceptable, but a transgression by a monarch is not acceptable. And Kannaki changes when she realizes that a monarch has made a mistake. A man making a mistake in the position of a husband is very, very different than a monarch making a major mistake in taking the life of someone which is not redeemable. And I think that the whole scenario wherein she really punishes the king is something that is worth talking about. It is contemporary enough for us to understand that if only our leaders take it that seriously, I think the whole world would be very different. And I also personally feel that's something very personal is that if every couple decided to separate at the smallest of the issue, probably we would be looking towards a broken society. So to that extent, I think Silapatikaram does have a strong message and not necessarily such a strong message for all of us. One of the major reasons why everybody should be reading this book is it has a message for everybody. The book is available now on Amazon and of course the website of Indus Source and in different bookstores across the country. Please buy it, read it and send in your feedback. One would love to hear that.